So welcome to the show, Fabio. Love to have you talk a little bit about yourself.
Sonny, man, it's an awesome. Every single one of you. I've been following UnLearn for a while, and you guys have had some great guests. And yeah, I'm pumped when Jake was sent the message, got the message from Jake. I'm like, yes, UnLearn time. Yeah, like I'm gonna say, like right now, my journey is evolving, like in a big way. In that, I did a post not too long ago where I said it was a quote by sort of a piggyback off a quote by Goldie, and I said, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that what I'm doing is leading somewhere good. And the reason I say that is because, I've sort of opened a ton of doors right now that, I have my career, which I love, and I'm a partnership specialist for one of the largest credit unions in Canada, and, on the marketing side. And then, this sort of the whole LinkedIn sort of thing has just opened doors to just amazing people. I've met some amazing people along the way that it's drawn a lot of positivity and community building that you just kind of see where it goes. And so, yeah, it's been great so far. I have a busy life. I'm a dad of 2 kids, and it keeps me busy, but they're an absolute blessing. It's the best part of my life. And that keeps me busy. So career and family, all that sort of stuff keeps me busy. The family's growing, but day-to-day community building, LinkedIn, and then just seeing where the marketing and branding journey takes me. That's one of the things I love to do, is teach and educate and provide value to, also for me, the next generation of leaders. I have a big passion for that. Students and the young professional demographic. I just have that heart for them. And so, yeah, that's sort of where I may want to take it. Like, whatever I can do to provide value and serve that sort of demographic, that's one of the things I love to do, because that's such a generation in need right now.
So is that your why? Is that why you do everything that you do? Could you kind of like elaborate on that a little more?
Good. Yeah, good question, Katie. It's funny, like my why is, I don't know if I would say per se it's like young professionals or students, but it's a big part of my journey. And it's a big part of, for me, I'm going to say for my why in terms of where I've evolved to in my career and in my life, has been like mentors and people on the way from that young professional journey, or that when I was a student, that I just want to give back. And it kind of goes back to my story in college and university. I always tell the story because I think when you set good foundations for yourself early in life, even if it's college or university, it's such an important part to your career. And I was at I dropped out of my first year university, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I took a year off, and I was actually a server. I worked in a cafe for a year. I actually met my wife there, which is funny how things work, right? And when I went back to school, to college, I went to the chair of the business school at the time, and I went back to take business, and I really didn't know what I wanted. Like, I wanted to have an impact, but I didn't really know how to do that. And it was him that said, don't be a PCP student. And he said, parking lot, classroom, parking lot. He's like, don't just come to come to class and then go right back to the parking lot. You're losing out on so much success in this college experience. And it was through exactly like that, getting involved and doing more than is expected, working with other students, getting involved in tons of stuff, that really set me out on a journey to, throughout my years at school, really learned a ton and got involved in a ton and grew a ton because of those people pouring into my life. And then I just transitioned that into my career, and I thought, there's so many people and I do speak to colleges and universities often now, and when I do, there's so many people that just miss that, and they feel like, I'm going to graduate and get that piece of paper, and I'm going in my career and whatever I'm doing, and I'm at it. And then they are surely disappointed 3 or 5 years down the road when they still haven't found a job yet. And I think it's so much more than that, that I want to set that foundation early on for them, that I have that passion for them, because that's one of the things that I think is so needed, is getting that right perspective, especially with millennials these days.
So how did you understand being a student, right? If I could go back, I would do it all over again, totally different, right? I would go back to high school and actually pay attention. How did you actually figure out that you wanted to be more than a PCP student, you know? And how did you, like, I don't know, understand that and accept it?
Good question, Chantel. I actually just had someone ask me that not too long ago, a week ago, and it was I would say a lot of it stems back to like how I was raised. You know, my dad was in construction and he started his own framing company. And I worked with him for 7 years building houses. So another fun fact, I can actually, I actually am pretty decent with my hands. Like I renovated my whole house, and I learned so many skills from my dad in terms of he was a hard ass on us kids, like us boys. So you know, he was very big on like you know, do things before I ask you, and you know, be proactive in things, and so he built a lot of those foundations in me. And I think just going through school, I always wanted to do more, but sometimes I just didn't know how, and I didn't want to pretend like I had everything all put together and that I knew everything. So so yeah, so that was just reaching out to a support system of people that could do that. And some people are just so afraid to do that, like being vulnerable and admitting that they don't understand or they don't know where to go. And I was like, you know what? Like, if I don't know, I'm just going to find the answer. So that's where I went. Chair of the business school, figured he probably had the answer. And so, yeah, I think that it was a culmination of just values that I grew up with, and just realizing like I'm only here for like a couple years. I'm like, I don't want to waste my time and then just like graduate and be like everybody else. So I don't know. I maybe had that a little bit in me to just, I got to do more because I don't want to be here 2 years, 3 years down the road and just be completely stuck again. So I just got involved in a ton, and I think it's part of it's maybe my personality, but you know, even little things like my last year of school, I didn't have any money to pay for my last year of education, and I was like, I was done. I had no more. I was literally empty, and so going into my final year. So I spent the entire summer applying to like dozens and dozens of scholarships and bursaries. And I got 80% of my school paid off for in the final year through those. Just because I like put the time and effort in. Some of them were small, some of them were big, but that was because I did more than expected. Like people don't take their summers and go and do that, but I did. And I thought those are little things I learned along the way that show if you put that time, you put that effort in, and you do more than is expected, like it's amazing the things that can come out of it. So, and that, again, I transitioned that exact same thought process into my career, because it's not just as a student, it's the same thing in your career. You know, be a self-starter, treat your job as if you're an entrepreneur. Like, if you see a need, if you see a problem, go fill that gap. Like go, and if there's a team that's not necessarily reporting to you that needs help, go help them. Like, and that's just been a huge transition to my career that I've learned, and it all stems from the things that I learned from college and university.
So when you're talking about, I think it's interesting too that you're saying that you're kind of like in this state of flux right now. You're not, you know, there's so many different ways your life could go.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of elaborate on that? Tell people, you know, how that feels, how you're navigating, like what the pitfalls are, what success feels like, all that kind of stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I guess from both sides, on one side, it's like you have a good sense of curiosity, which is cool, which is fun. It keeps you guessing every day. It's like, you see doors open, but what also gives you is choice. So what I love about it is that when things pop up, opportunities, new people that you meet, new doors open, it's like you now have the choice to walk in through that door, or you could close it. But if you don't create those opportunities for yourself, you don't have that choice to walk through. So so from that sense, it's like, it's good. It keeps you curious, and it gets you more opportunities and opening doors. And for me, I like to say LinkedIn is like, it's given me doors of opportunity that I never had before. Where it's like, instead of opening 3 doors in your life, open like 1,000, and then you have the choice to do it. And then now you're in control of where you may want to go. And then the other side of things, it's like you sometimes feel like, should I have everything all put together, know exactly what I want to do right now, and go and do it? And I think that's where I'm like, it's still evolving. There's aspects of my life that I enjoy, and there's aspects that I'm like, I've always been notoriously, I would say, stuck in terms of, in my career, I've been labeled sometimes as a jack of all trades, and it can be a huge pitfall because you enjoy a lot of different things and you have maybe a skill set in different things, but you're like, I can't do everything. What do I want to continue doing with my life? Now I love my career, and that's one of the things. A lot of people don't love their job. I actually love my career. So, but it's like there's other things in my life that I love to do in order to help fulfill other areas. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit about me. So there's aspects of my life that I want to fill, and it's maybe that side that I'm like continuing to explore and see where it sort of evolves into.
So, Fabio, how would you say that you go about making decisions? Because if you have 1,000 open doors, that means, like you said, you've got choice. What are some things you do to help just move forward, even just one step?
Good question, Jake. I guess number one is I make sure I talk to my wife because, if I make a decision and you go and do something, she's like, you didn't even tell me about that. You didn't even ask me. So, now you have a family, there's other implications involved, right? It's not just myself. I got kids, and I got a house, and a mortgage, and you got a wife, and there's all these things. So you have to make sure that your family's supportive of any decision that you make. So that's a big one as well. So anytime I make a decision, I make sure I always go back to my family and ask them about it as well. But I also take time to reflect. Like, I don't just make sometimes a decision right on a whim. And the reason I do that is because I take time to truly reflect on what decision I'm making. I take time. Faith is a big part of my life, so I take time to pray. On emotion, but sometimes they're not necessarily the right decisions. And I like to say that all the time because the emotional side and the decision-making side are in the same part of your brain, right? So when you go through a bad breakup, or when you go through you're in a very sad state, sometimes you make bad decisions. When you grab that tub of ice cream, or you go on a shopping spree because you're making a bad decision because of an emotional trigger. So for me, it's like making sure I don't always have the emotional side into those decisions, because sometimes I won't think it through. So take time to reflect, and also take time to speak to my family and make sure we have that support together. But also make sure that there's longevity to it. So if I'm making a decision, Jake, it's like, is this something that's going to benefit and be a positive outcome in a couple of years down the road, and 5 years down the road? So I know that it's got some sort of long-term value, instead of just, maybe if I do something in 6 months, I'm just going to stop doing it. And if I'm going to put time and effort in, I want to make sure that it's going to be something that's going to be beneficial to my life.
So Fabio, you've shared a lot about where you have been, where you're at now. What I'd love to hear is, what is something that you today are having to unlearn so that you can, all of these things you told us about. So, if it's staying with the credit union, of course, support to your family and to your faith, and these, like Jake's point about the 1,000 doors that are open. What's one thing that you have to unlearn today to help you to accomplish what you want to do in the future for yourself?
I would say probably in my life in the last couple of years, I've really learned, and it's probably even more so over the last 6 months, to involve other people. And the reason I say that is because I would say that, being super transparent, like over the years, I've had a pretty proud heart, and you tend to want to make decisions by yourself. You want to do things by yourself. Sometimes you don't want to involve other people, and you think you got it all put together. And so I think it's being real and saying, I don't have it all put together. I'm a human being, and at the end of the day, we're all not perfect. And we're not infallible. So it's realizing you need people, support system around you in multiple areas of your life. Like, it's not like one person. It's like whatever all your different values are. If it's like work and family and relationships, whatever it is, like all those areas, if there's somebody that you can lean on, that can help guide you along the way, because I can't pretend like I have it all put together. And that's been a big proponent. I've been a big proponent in my career of reaching out to people for help. And, so for me, I'm willing to unlearn, like, you don't have it all put together. If you want to do it yourself, go for it, but you're going to have a very slow process. You're going to go through a lot of hard learnings and failures. But if you reach out to someone else for support and help and guidance, and maybe support them as well, you're going to see way more successes come out of it. And I love the quote, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it's been a big one for me, is like reaching out to people. If you don't know where to go, find somebody who's walked the path that you want to be on, and go talk to them and go emulate that path or whatever it is. So that's been a big one for me. And it took like a humbling of like, okay, I don't have it all put together, and like a crushing of my pride to be able to finally get to do that. And in the last probably 6 months, I've done that more so in my life than ever before.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Fabio, we're going to go around for the co-host first, just to see if there's any last questions, comments, or something that they wanted to ask. And if there isn't, then we'll turn the mic over to you so that you are welcome to ask us anything you'd like. So, co-hosts.
I have another quick question. Please, may I ask? So, you talk about, having 1,000 open doors, right? 1,000 doors of opportunity. Well, for somebody who doesn't have like that confidence, but knows that there's like this burning fire inside, that they want more, that they want opportunity, but they're just too insecure and they don't have that confidence to explore opportunities. Do you have one piece of advice for somebody to find that confidence to pursue their dreams?
Ooh, that's an interesting one, especially if they don't have the confidence. I mean, it always goes back like to having that support, like to have somebody that can maybe even help guide you along the way. If you don't know the words to say to somebody, like, how do I reach out to somebody? What if you don't know, then I mean, I would just say like it's hard to reach out to somebody. I know it's like you have to feel you have to sort of set again that pride aside, but it's just reaching out for help and being like, listen, I don't have it all put together. I don't know how to reach out to somebody. Like, I don't know how to build a community. I don't know how to build a network. I don't even know how to ask somebody if I can have them on a podcast. I don't know if I can have a coffee with them. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it seems so simple. Like, just go ask someone for a coffee. Just go ask someone to, meet with them for 10, 20 minutes of their time. But to some people that maybe don't know how have a challenge talking to people or have a challenge opening themselves up, I would say just start. And it's the simplest thing. Like, just start doing it. You're going to be people that you talk to and they're not going to respond back. Big deal. You know what? Try someone else and then reach out to them in like 6 months and maybe apologize, whatever it is. Like, and that's exactly what I did. I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, just start talking to people. Like, at the end of the day, we're human beings. Just be human. And it's amazing. It is amazing how often, if you reach out to somebody, people are willing to lend a hand and open up and really help you. And I think if you don't have that confidence, reach out to somebody that can help you instead of pretending you can do it yourself.
Awesome. That's some good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did want to ask too, so you talked about like having your ego crushed.
Mm-hmm.
So was it like one giant blow, or was it like, I mean, what was the process? Like, what did that look like? And yeah, could you kind of go into depth about that, please?
Sure. I mean, I would say that like I think Jake had mentioned this one time. He said, I've never been that person that has that story that's like you you started from the bottom and you got crushed, and it's like you worked your way up, and I went bankrupt, and I don't have that story, right? So but I think for me it was just people that in my life that pointed things out to me sometimes, and particularly men, like fathers, godly men in my life that were just like, listen, like this is things that maybe that you said or you did that you could learn from. And I think it's just sort of like little by little, like a prodding at my heart and a prodding of growing each and every single day. And I think if there's if I could say a big moment in my life was becoming a dad, because when you become a father, your entire focus shifts off of yourself and onto somebody else. And so when that happens, it's like a shift in your mindset of like, this isn't about me anymore. And so I think for me, that was another big one. When I had my eldest, she came, I started to grow a little bit more, and I became more of an adult, and you grow that much more, and you care that much more about people, and your attitude changes in a way that you just sort of can't explain to people unless they become a parent. And yeah, so I think, so for me, that was probably if there was one particular aspect, it was little by little, but one particular aspect that made a big shift was probably becoming a parent.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I know a lot of times people think that they need like this, like, I guess if you're hard-headed, like I'm super hard-headed. So like I needed to be thrown to the depths, so it's really cool, like to just hear, that it doesn't have to be this great, big, drastic thing. Like you can change, like just because you choose to,
Yeah. And what's interesting too, I think, I'm trying to remember where I heard it. I think it was a guy named Marcus Buckingham. He wrote a book, and he wrote a book called Go Put Your Strengths to Work. And he has a video series and stuff too that he's done. And he talks a little about personalities and your strengths and that sort of thing. And he talked about change one time. And I thought it was super interesting because when he talked about change, he said, it's not necessarily that we change from like one person to the next, like one completely different person to the next. He said, and this is kind of interesting, and this is where I'm sort of on the fence, but he said, it's more so you become more of who you actually are. Because your personality, there's aspects of your personality. If you ever taken like your Myers-Briggs type indicator, you'll have a greater sense of, sort of who you are and what your personality gravitates towards. But he's like, when you start finding out your strengths and who you are in your personality, you start understanding more of like what your tendencies are, and you kind of morph into, as you grow more into that personality that you are, as opposed to changing from somebody completely different to somebody who's, let's say, started from the bottom, now you're here. But I think that's another big one for me, is like understanding my personality. When you understand like what your tendencies are and being okay with it, it's you start to realize like that's just sort of how you were wired. That's sort of how you were created, and your DNA is made in that way. And so you sort of just embrace it. And but yeah, I never had that failure to success story that is so often well marketed in the world on social media.
That's why I think, I don't know, like these type of stories are almost more interesting because I don't know, there's so many people who have the fail to success, and it's like, well, what if you didn't? What if you're just like, I don't know, taking the path of most people, And so it's a lot more relatable, I think, to a lot more people.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, it does depend also, I think, in how you're raised. Like some people, they don't grow up in a very good environment, and that's just sometimes how it turns out. And then you have to like fight tooth and nail to become a better person and become the man or the woman that you are. Where I grew up in a family that I had a lot of advantages. Like, we live in a great country, and I had a lot of support and love and people behind me. So both financially and, my parents taught me a lot of skills. Like, my first year college, university, they're like, we're paying for half. Everything else is all on you. So they made sure, like, they taught us valuable skills, but at the same time pushed us to be more independent. So I think that maybe when you have a little bit more of that support, maybe you sometimes tend to lean on them maybe a little bit more, but at the same time, maybe you don't have those grand failure as to success stories, because you've sort of been dealt a better hand than a lot of other people. And as much as some people would say that's unfair, it's like sometimes that's the reality. And for those people, like for myself, I don't have that failure to success story, so to speak, because I haven't started, like, I haven't lived in poverty and all those types of things. But I guess in the same retrospect, it's like you can now use that story for good, right? So whatever it is, use whatever you've done in your life to provide value to other people, regardless of their life situation. So, but yeah, no, it's so funny, that story, that black and white contrast always comes up, and so I just tell people, like, you know what, I don't have that story, but it's little by little along the way. But we all can learn from those little changes.
Well, Fabio, we're going to turn the mic over to you, but first wanted to say on behalf of all the 5 co-hosts, thank you so much for giving up a little bit of your time this afternoon, or morning for you folks, to speak with us and talk to us a little bit about on the UnLearn show about your story and what you've done to get to where you are today. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonny.
So the floor is yours. You can pick on one co-host. You can pick on all of us. You can just have a conversation with any of us. But if you just wanted to chat about anything, it's all yours, Fabio.
Cool. Well, I'm always interested to hear from people, particularly when it comes to, and it's like probably an often asked question, but I always just love to hear what people's thoughts are. And then you all may be completely different. But what is the single greatest skill that anybody can learn, whether it's soft or like skill based, like technical skills, or soft? Like, what is it? And sometimes we need to unlearn things to be able to get to that skill, or whether it's soft skill, we need to learn hard truths. But what is it from each of you, that soft or technical skill that really can make a difference in people, that can really catapult them regardless of their life situation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, Katie, go ahead.
No, there was just a silence, and you know me, I'm like the kid who's like, okay, if nobody's going to go, I'm going to go. You go ahead. You got it. Okay. I would say consistency, just because. Were you going to say that, Sonny, or nah? Okay, cool. Okay. Consistency, just because, well, I mean, for obvious reasons, but I mean, it could also be probably a bad thing too, right? If you pick something that's horrible and you're super consistent at it, like, that sucks. But I think in general, when you're consistent with something, like, it just, one of my friends, we were talking about this the other day, but just like small consistent actions like lead to great changes. Like, you'll be great. Like, if you consistently like practice baseball, or you consistently, you like marketing or whatever it is, I mean, you get good over time. So, and I think most like great people who've been great at anything have been consistent at it. Like, they weren't just born great. Like, it's, they picked something up, started doing it, and went after it. Like, even if they sucked at it at first, but they loved it and just kept doing it. So that.
Love it. Love it. Who's next? Sonny?
I can be next.
Lacey?
I would say one of the best things you could learn how to do is to actually listen to people, as opposed to just waiting for your turn to talk. Because that's when people have so much knowledge. They have so many experiences, so much knowledge. They're usually talking, most people are talking for a reason. So if you can learn to actually listen to somebody, I think I think that makes successful people as well.
I love that, Lacey. I really do. I learned that early in my career. I was like, when I first started, I was that guy who like just didn't stop talking during meetings, and a lot of it was like, a lot of it's like fluff. It's like everybody probably said that like 10 times. So I completely changed now. It's like I just sit there and I pretty much, I'm like, I talk a decent amount, but like I now sit there and I just listen to people. And normally it's like, I'm like, yeah, I probably would have said that too. And I'm like, so I don't need to say it again. And then at the end, I'll just analyze all that stuff, and then I'll like provide a few of my thoughts. And generally they're a lot more thought through and more valuable. And that's just because I listen. So, and that was some hard lessons I learned too from other people that were like, my wife is a big one. She's like, you just talk to talk sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I probably should listen more, like, as opposed to just talk. Cause sometimes, it's like it may not be valuable, and it's just like it's just filler. So I've been learning to do that a lot more in both my personal life and professional life. So love that, Lacey. Fantastic.
Sometimes those wives, man, they know what they're talking about.
They absolutely do. they definitely make you better people.
I guess I'll go. Ladies first, right? All right. I think the biggest, most beneficial skill that I had to learn, and it took becoming a mother to learn it, is empathy. Mm-hmm. Empathy has not only taught me to accept my own flaws and the fact that imperfections are beautiful, but also appreciate the flaws in everybody else, right? So disagreements, people who come from opposing sides, it's a beautiful opportunity to dig inside of their brain and try to feel what they're feeling in that moment. So I know it's not something that you can easily train, and it's not something you can easily learn, but it's definitely something that you can practice, and it is a solid skill to have.
Totally agree. All comes down to the emotional intelligence, right? A huge like proponent in that full methodology. So love it, yeah. Chantal. Fantastic. Yeah. Jake, Sonny.
All right, Sonny likes to go last. That's his thing. So I'll jump in here. Being present is a big one. Because Fabio, you and I have talked before, like I'm also have had that jack of all trades sort of thing my whole life, and never felt like I was good enough to do any one thing as the guy. And so what I found is a lot of times it was just because I was too busy worrying about the next thing, and I wasn't present in the current situation or moment. And so that spreads across so many different areas of your life, not just work, personal life, spiritual life, all those different things. If you're not willing to sit in the moment and be empathetic and to listen and to think about other people ahead of yourselves and all those things, then you are literally tossing 50, 80, 90% of the experience out the window without, because you're just not present. And so it was one of those things where kids helped a lot. Especially as they started to get older. When they're younger, they demand your attention. So it's like, okay, you got it. But as they get older and start talking and having intelligent conversations, for me, a switch was, wow, this person actually wants to get to know me. And so I should give them my time, all my time, and focus on them and not be looking over their shoulder at SportsCenter or, or whatever it might be. Or they want my attention, so I'm going to give them my full attention. And in return, it becomes a really selfish act once you start realizing how awesome it is to be present, because then you go, well, I've really been missing out. This is awesome. I'm going to be here. So yeah, presence is a big thing.
I love that. Awesome, Jake. Awesome.
So in all fairness, I tried to go first this time, Jake, but Katie, in her usual way, just cut me off at the knees. Go ahead, Katie. Yeah, no, go ahead. I come off mute. Go
I just like to get it out of the way. Okay, I get get anxiety.
So mine is, I wanted to say communication. That's where I wanted to start, but I'm going to change it because every single point that everybody has made has really wrapped right underneath communication, Fabio, right? So every piece of this component has a soft skill, the art of communication. So I'll take one a little bit more specific, so it still falls under that, is perspective. And it's others' perspectives. And I wanted to tie it back to what everybody has said, and specifically to you, Fabio, where you talked about becoming a dad. And I think that much like you, I mean, I've been pretty blessed. I knock on wood everywhere. I've got wonderful parents, wonderful family that haven't always been, like the center of me, where I haven't given my family the attention or the due, not just when I was married, but just family in general. And I didn't do that when I was growing up. And there wasn't a right or wrong to it. I was self-centered. I was selfish. I wanted what was best for me and what would benefit me. And if it ultimately helped them out too, that was great. But it was never about that. And then becoming a dad, that perspective, I mean, you see it on the videos that we create with Ohm. My perspective is really understanding what the world looks like through his eyes. And what that has helped me to become, I hope, fingers crossed, is a better dad, a better husband, a better son. And I know it because, my family, like my parents, my brother, my siblings are like, wow, like, getting married has really changed you. And of course, having a better half does change you. So yes, Lacey, wives have a way of doing that, no doubt about it. But becoming a dad and starting to look at the world through his eyes and those perspectives, and I tie it back to the opportunity to create videos through LinkedIn. So that gratitude of having that opportunity has helped me to understand perspective from not only other people, but from, my son's eyes. And I think that, the example I give is this, like a stuffed toy, like on this trip to England, he's got a giraffe that's traveling with him. And, we weren't going to go out to lunch with the giraffe. And all of a sudden he's like, giraffe, giraffe, giraffe. And I'm like, oh, it's just a stuffed animal. Who cares? But then I had to stop for a second to think, well, what's simple to me is to him like his best buddy, not sitting down at lunch with him. Even if he's just sitting there talking to him, it's like the world to him to not have his buddy come and experience, his first pub, sitting down and eating fish and chips. Like his buddy wasn't going to be there with him. So what was something that was so simple to me was like the world to him. So perspective, others' perspectives.
That's awesome. Comes down to perspective with empathy, like with being present, all these things all wrapped in one. It's like, and then, how you communicate that to him, right? Again, coming down to your final one as well. So awesome. This is fantastic. You guys are rock stars.
Awesome. Fabio, once again, thank you so much. We had such a wonderful time talking with you. And we appreciate you being a guest on the show.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure, and it was one that I couldn't wait for. You all are amazing human beings, and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep unlearning and learning, and getting new perspectives on life, and just providing value to other people. That's exactly what you guys are doing. Taking value from other people, outpouring it, and pouring it into the lives of other people. So just keep doing that. You guys are doing some amazing things in this world. Appreciate you all.
Aw, thanks, Fabio.
Thanks, Fabio. Appreciate you.